So if you want to download a file using UiPath, there are 3 steps that we need to follow in order to make sure that the file has been downloaded correctly. The first step is going to be finding the URL of the file. The second step is downloading the file. And then the third step is going to be a verification step where we're going to see if the file has been downloaded correctly or not. So this is why today we are going to see those 3 steps in action, and we are going to see the most complete tutorial on the best way to be able to download files correctly from the web using UiPath. Let's jump to my screen. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is create a new process. Let's click on process and let's call it download file. And let's click on create. Let's click on open main workflow. And here we are going to drag our first activity, use application browser. Okay, so let's drag it in here. And the example that we are going to use is the RPA challenge. And the file that we want to download is going to be this Excel sheet. So let's click on here. Normally what Edge does is that it opens a file in the viewing mode before we can download it. And this is somehow different than Chrome, because Chrome will just download the file for you. So depending on the browser, there are different behaviors unless you change the configuration of the browser. What we want to do is find a way to always download the file without having to deal with the differences between browsers. So let's close these and let's go back to UiPath. Let's click on indicate application browser. Let's indicate the RPA Challenge website. We are going to have it here. And the first thing that we are going to use is attribute. Here, we are going to use the activity get attribute. Okay, so let's indicate the element, which is the button download Excel. Let's keep it as it is. We don't need to change anything. Let's click on confirm. Okay, so now let's choose the attribute and let's look for Href. So let's click here and look for Href, and it's here. And we are going to save it inside a new variable. Let's call it URL. Let's click on Control K URL. That's good. If you go to variables, we are going to have the URL already created in here. Good. Let's click on Control S to save everything. And the second activity that we are going to use is a message box, just to visualize the URL that we have just retrieved and see if we got the right URL that we are going to use afterwards. So let's have URL in here. Let's click on Control S to save it. And let's launch the process. Let's debug it. Okay, so it has finished. And as you can see, the Href is not a complete URL. So what are we going to do here? Because as we can see here, it's not a complete URL. So we have to complete the URL ourselves, and we have to make sure that this URL leads us to the file that we have to download. So let's go back to the RPA Challenge website. Let's inspect the element, download file, inspect. Here, let's double click on Href, just so that we can have the ability to copy paste this. Let's copy it. Let's paste it inside of a new tab. And as you can see here, it's not taking us to the file, of course. So what we should do is that we should copy the RPA Challenge website, and we should paste it. And we should paste it here. And then we should copy the rest, and we should paste it here, the rest of the href that we have just copied. So let's click on enter, and as you can see here, it leads me to the website where I want to download the file. So the concatenation between the RPA Challenge website and the href takes me to the file that I want to download. This is exactly what I want. So let's go back to UiPath. And here, what I will do is an assign activity. And this assign activity, I will put inside the URL the RPA Challenge website. I will copy it. Inside of double quotes, we are going to do this, plus the URL that we have just extracted. Sorry, the URL we have just extracted. This way, it will give me the complete URL that leads me to the file that I want to download, and I will need this after that. Good. Now that we have finished the first step, which is getting the URL that we want to download, we need to go to the second step, which is going to be downloading the file. Now, there are a lot of ways to do it. There is HTTP requests. There is an activity dedicated for that and the managed packages. But the method that has never failed me is actually 3 lines of code that I always use, and they always download the file without any problems. So we are going to be using this method. So let's use invoke code. Let's search for invoke code here, and let's from workflow invoke, let's drag and drop the invoke code. So here, let's click on edit code, and I will copy paste that code that I already have ready. So I will copy paste this code. You will find it in the description below. And this code is like just 3 lines of code, actually 2 lines. And all what it does is that it uses this library, and it uses this function download file with URL and path as arguments. So we need to give it a URL that we have already prepared and a path where it should download the file. So it takes the URL, it finds the elements, it downloads it, and then it put it inside the file. It's so simple, nothing so hard to understand about this code. It's literally 2 lines of code. So let's click on OK. And now we need to go to edit arguments, and we are going to add the first argument. Direction should be in the URL, and we are going to give it the value URL. The second argument is going to be path, always in, and we are going to, let's just click on OK now, and we want to download this file inside this folder that I already have here. So I'm going to this folder, I'm going to copy the path. Let's go back to UiPath. I will go to edit arguments again. Let's do this. Let's put the path in here, and we have to add the file name as well. So it should be a full path with the folder and a file name. So in this case, the file name will be, so backslash, the file name will be challenge.excel. So this should be the extension of an Excel sheet. And we are going to click on OK. And now we have our code ready. And this is basically the part that's going to be able to download the file for us. So let's click on debug and see what's going to happen now. Or let's click on run, actually. And see if the process is going to be able to download the file. Good. So let's minimize this. And as you can see, it just has downloaded the file for us. So it just downloaded it right now. So that's good. So we have the challenge that has just been downloaded. So we have just finished the step number 2. Now, if we want to use the file right away, right after this activity, if the file is so big, it could take some time in order for it to be downloaded. This means if I use a read range or a read Excel sheet right after this activity, it won't work because the file has not been downloaded yet. So we have to make sure that the file has been downloaded. And now we're going to get to the third step, which is going to be a verification of the downloaded file, if the file has been downloaded or not, and wait until the file has been downloaded before finishing this invoke code. And this can be achieved using the activity wait for download. So this activity right here that we are going to place in here. And this activity, it's a container. we have a do where we have to put the whatever activity that is responsible of downloading the file. It could be a click, it could be a code, like invoke code in here, or it could be anything, typing into or anything that's gonna help you to download the file. It's the activity that we should put inside here. And then we have to give it a monitored folder. So the monitored folder is going to be, let's delete whatever is happening here. By default, we have the downloads file folder, but here we are going to choose, let's go to desktop, and we are going to choose this folder. Let's click on select folder, and it's gonna take me to this folder. Good. So now I have finished the third step. It's that easy. And all we need to do is basically delete the file that we have here. What's going on? Delete it. Good. And now I will simply run the automation. Let's click on run file. Let's open the downloaded folder. And here you are going to see until the file has been downloaded, then the automation finishes. In the first case, when we did the first launch, the automation has finished before the file has been downloaded. So now the process waits for the folder to be downloaded, and then it finishes, and then it goes to the next activity. So this is very important. If you're gonna use the folder right away, maybe you wanna move it somewhere else, maybe you wanna use the Excel sheet to read something inside it, this wait for download can be a lifesaver for you, and I advise you to use it whenever you wanna download a new file on the internet. So yeah, that's basically it. We have 3 steps that we have just went through, and these 3 steps are the best way, in my experience, to download any type of folder and make sure that it has been downloaded correctly. That's good. So I can finish the video here. I can just make it a simple video and finish it right here. But I always like to share more information about things that I found it hard when I was creating the process. So here, before sharing the trick, I will just ask you to subscribe if you can for the mighty YouTube algorithm. It helps this content to be pushed for as many people as possible. Okay, now let's go back to the process. I want to share with you something that I found really interesting when I was developing the process. So in this case, when we tried to get the attribute href for the download Excel button, it was so easy to get. It was right there. We didn't need to do anything. We just needed to search for it. But there are some use cases where you have a button to download something and you can't find the href attribute, meaning that you can't get the URL in order to download the file. So you have 2 solutions in this case. Either you just give up and you basically do the download as everyone does, which means that you have to click on download Excel. The UiPath process have to click on download Excel, and then it has to click on download file. That will take more time, and then you have to wait for the folder to be downloaded. And if you go from machine to another, as I said, Chrome has a behavior, Edge has another behavior. So you have to make sure there are pre-configurations in a machine that you have already working with. So deployment from testing to production would not be easy. Or you can just try harder to find the href attribute. The href attribute always exists, so we just need to search for it inside of the selector. So a use case, a viable use case that I found. So inside of the RPA challenge, if we go to invoice extraction and we try to download invoices from here, of course, Edge opens it in another. We can change the configuration in order for it to download directly, but we don't want to do that. We want to be able to download even with this pre-configuration. So here, if I go to get attributes for this button, sorry, let me click on F2. And if I want to get the attribute of the download button here, I can choose the strict selector in this case, because I can't find any table row or anything inside of this fuzzy selector, so I don't like it so much. So let's just work with strict selector. Let's uncheck everything else. Let's click on confirm. Good. So now let's try to look for the href attribute. So let's delete this and try to look for the Href attribute. So here, Href, we can't find it. Let's try to look for it visually. We have the H window, but we don't have any Href. So in this case, you have to work with the selector and you have to try to find the parent selector that has the Href inside of it. What do I mean by this is you need to click on Edit Target, 3 dots, Edit Target. Here you are going to open this inside of the UI Explorer. Let's open it inside of the UI Explorer. After the UI Explorer opens, in this element, we can see that we don't have any Href attributes. So in the selected items and unselected items, we don't have an Href. This is why we need to go to the parent element. And in the parent element, we can see that we have an Href attribute in here. This is why we need to go to this parent element, which is this, and double click on it in order to change the selector to a selector that have an Href attribute inside of it. So now let's click on Save. Let's drag and drop this, and let's click on this eye icon to show all the matches. And it shows us that there is only one match, which means that we have a valid selector. Let's click on Confirm. And here, if we come here and click on the button here, we're gonna find that the Href does exist, and we can do basically the same thing that we did before. So if you don't find the Href by your first selector, you just need to work on the selector more in order to find the Href. You don't need to give up and do the old way of the UI automation clicks. You can try to find the Href, which is going to be a more clean process that's going to work on every machine, not just in one machine with one configuration, as we said before. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share with you guys. Thank you guys for watching, and catch you guys on the next one. Peace.